Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a fascinating stack of research to get through today, and honestly, looking at this pile of notes, it feels a little bit like we're looking at a blueprint. We aren't looking at stories today or, history or tech trends. We are looking at the mechanics of how we think and speak.
That's actually a perfect metaphor, a blueprint, because today isn't really about vocabulary in the traditional sense. We aren't just learning a list of fancy words to impress people at a dinner party.
No, definitely not.
We're looking at the structural integrity of how we speak. We're looking at the architecture of fluency.
Right. And the context for this deep dive is something I think every single person listening has felt at some point. It's that specific frustration. You've been learning a language, English in this case, for years. You can order the coffee, you can sit through the movie, you can maybe even manage the Zoom call without sweating too much, but you hit a wall.
The intermediate plateau. It is, I think, the most crowded place in language learning. It's that B1, B2 purgatory where you are functional, but you aren't.
Well, you aren't optimized, and it's comfortable there,
Yeah.
right? You survive. But the problem, and this is what the source material really, really highlights, is that you don't feel slick. You don't feel persuasive. You feel like you're doing a constant translation in your head. You have a complex thought, but by the time it comes out of your mouth, it sounds like a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work, I was tired, so I came home.
Precisely. You feel like a blunt instrument. And usually when we analyze why that is, it's not because you don't know enough nouns. You know what a strategy is. You know what implementation means. The problem is the connective tissue. It's the glue. You're building a brick wall, but you're using cheap mortar, so the whole thing looks a bit shaky. You are relying on and so to do all the heavy lifting.
That's what we're tackling. We have, 30 specific linguistic tools here? We've got connectors, the transition words, and we have a specific list of what the source calls nightmare phrasal verbs, which sounds fun.
It does.
And the mission today is to figure out how to use these to move from I speak English to I command English.
It's about control. That's the key word for this session. Control. When you use the words we're discussing today, you are controlling the listener's brain. You are telling them exactly how to process the information you're about to give them. You are, in a very real sense, managing their expectations.
I love that. Mind control through grammar. Okay, so let's look at the blueprint. We've got 5 distinct groups of materials to build with today, and we're starting with the most basic function of communication, adding information.
The addition and similarity group, or as I like to call it, the art of and.
Because that's the default, isn't it? And I did this and I did that. Also, I did this other thing. It works. I mean, it's functional, but it's incredibly flat. It feels like a grocery list.
It's flat because it suggests every single piece of information has equal weight, milk and eggs and bread. But in a professional context or an academic one, you aren't making a list. You are building a case. You are layering arguments. You are trying to convince someone that your point of view is the correct one. And you can't do that if every sentence sounds the same.
So let's look at the first upgrade in our toolkit. In addition. Now, on the surface, this feels interchangeable with also. But the research points out a massive trap here that intermediate learners fall into constantly.
Oh, constantly. It's a grammatical trap. It's the difference between using in addition as a standalone connector and using the phrase in addition to. This is where the wheels fall off for a lot of people.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics here, because I'm pretty sure I've made this mistake myself.
Well, in addition by itself is a connector. It usually starts the sentence. You finish a thought, period. Then you start a new one. The company pays well. In addition, the benefits are great. That's simple. It's just a signpost saying, here comes another good thing. It signals a layering effect.
Okay, simple enough. But then you add the to, and that's where things get messy.
Right. In addition to, now, your brain, especially if you were coming from a Germanic or Romance language background, hears the word to and immediately thinks of the infinitive. We say, I want to work, I need to study, I decided to go.
So the natural instinct is to say something like, in addition to work hard, I'm also smart.
Exactly. And that just screams non-native speaker. It's a dead giveaway. Because here, to is not an infinitive marker, it is a preposition. And in English grammar, you cannot follow a preposition with a base verb. You simply can't. You need a noun object, or if it's an action, it must be the gerund, the ing form.
So it has to be in addition to working hard.
Correct. Or looking at the source example, which is great, in addition to being a talented musician, she is also a published author.
That construction feels completely different than just saying she is a musician and she writes books.
It does, doesn't it? It creates a kind of hierarchy by saying, in addition to being a musician, you are essentially saying, okay, put that fact in a box, acknowledge it, and move it to the side because I'm about to show you something else. It establishes a baseline so you can build on top of it. It flows. It shows you can handle complex sentence structures.
It creates momentum. Okay, let's dial up the formality. Let's say I want to sound like I'm wearing a monocle. I want to use furthermore.
Furthermore is your heavy lifter. You generally won't use this when you're talking about your weekend plans. I'm going to the cinema. Furthermore, I will buy popcorn. No. You sound like a robot.
Right. Or a very strange alien trying to blend in.
Exactly.
I might try that just to annoy my friends. I ordered the pizza. Furthermore, I requested extra cheese.
Please don't. But in a boardroom or in writing, furthermore signals that you are building a serious argument. It's very, very common in academic writing. The source gives a scathing example here. The research was poorly conducted. Furthermore, the results were statistically insignificant.
Oof, that was a brutal sentence. That is academic trash talk.
It is. And notice the function of furthermore there. It's a 1-2 punch. Punch 1, the method was bad. Punch 2, even if the method was good, the numbers don't matter anyway.
Right. If you just use and, the research was bad and the results were insignificant, it sounds like you're just complaining. It sounds like a flat list of problems. But furthermore, separates them into two distinct, powerful failures.
It adds weight. It tells the listener, I am not done criticizing this yet. Here is another, even heavier brick I'm throwing on the pile. It invites the reader to pause and consider the accumulation of evidence.
Now, this brings us to a word that I think people confuse with furthermore all the time. Moreover, to me, they feel almost identical, are they? Or is there a nuance we're missing?
They are cousins, certainly. They both add information. And in many, many contexts, you could swap them without anyone really noticing. But if we want to be precise, and we do, if furthermore is about building evidence, moreover is about persuasion. The source material describes moreover as the nail in the coffin.
The closer, the mic drop.
The closer. Exactly. You use moreover when the point you're about to add is the strongest point you have. It's the one that shuts down the debate. It signals that what comes next is the decisive factor.
Let's look at the stadium example to illustrate this. The new stadium will create jobs. Moreover, it will boost the local economy through tourism.
See the progression? Creating jobs is a nice local benefit. It's good. We like that. But boosting the entire economy, that's the big picture. That's the reason the mayor signs the check. You wouldn't say, it will boost the economy. Moreover, it will create a few jobs. That feels anticlimactic. It feels like you're going backwards.
So, moreover should always lead to the stronger, more impactful point.
Ideally, yes. It signals intensity. It's saying not only X, but even more importantly, Y. It guides the listener to value the second point more than the first.
That is a really helpful distinction. I've definitely been using those randomly. I usually just pick whichever one sounds fancier at the moment. But knowing, moreover, is for persuasion. That changes how I'll use it in emails.
It's a subtle power move. It really is.
Okay, let's strip the emotion out for a second. What if I just want to be organized? I'm writing a project plan. I don't want to be persuasive. I don't want to argue. I just want to be clear and list things.
Then you want additionally. It's the cleanest, most professional tool in the box for that purpose. It doesn't carry the emotional weight of moreover or the academic density of furthermore. It just says, here is another factor to consider.
We need to hire 2 developers. Additionally, we require a project manager.
Perfect. It's crisp. It signals to the reader that this is a list of requirements. It helps them mentally organize the checklist. It says, don't stop reading. There is one more item you need to be aware of.
Okay, we have one more in this group, but it works a little differently. Similarly, this isn't just adding a point on top of another point. This is doing something lateral.
Similarly is fantastic because it's a shortcut for the brain. It bridges 2 separate topics by highlighting a shared logic between them.
The source uses a health example. High-quality sleep improves cognitive function. Similarly, a balanced diet is crucial for mental clarity.
So think about what happens in the listener's brain there. You spend time explaining why sleep is good for the brain. The listener accepts that logic, they nod along. Then you say, similarly, and pivot to diet. You are telling the listener, you don't need to learn a whole new logic system. Just take the logic you already accepted for sleep and copy-paste it onto diet.
It creates a pattern. It makes the new information easier to digest.
Humans love patterns. We are pattern-seeking machines. If you can show someone that situation B is just like situation A, which they already understand, you win the argument much faster. It reduces the cognitive load on the listener.
So that's the art of and. We aren't just piling things up. We're organizing them, we're weighing them, and we're creating patterns. But life isn't always about agreement. Sometimes we need to pivot.
Which brings us to group 2, contrast and opposition.
This is my favorite section. I feel like these are the plot twists in language. You're leading the listener down a path, they think they know where they're going, and then bam, you spin them around.
That's exactly what they are. In standardized tests, like the YDT or IELTS, these are absolutely critical. If you miss the however or the conversely, you will get the answer wrong because you'll misunderstand the relationship between the ideas. But in real life, in a negotiation, this is how you manage expectations. You lead someone to a door, and then you show them a window they didn't see before.
Let's start with the classic, in contrast.
It's straightforward, it's visual, and it's powerful. It highlights a difference. Not necessarily a contradiction or a conflict, just a clear difference between two things. The example from the source is perfect. The north of the country is mountainous. In contrast, the south is flat.
You're painting a picture. Left side of the canvas is mountains, right side is plains. There's no conflict there. They coexist. They're just different.
Exactly. It works for people, too. In contrast to his shy brother, Mark is outgoing. You are setting up a comparison so the distinctive features of both stand out more. It's like putting a black object against a white background. Both look more intense.
Okay, but here's the one that trips me up. Conversely. How is conversely different from in contrast? They both show a difference.
Conversely is much more specific and honestly much more elegant if you use it right. It's not just about difference, it's about a reverse relationship. Think of it as a mirror image. If you flip the input, you flip the output.
Okay, let's look at the lighting example from the material to ground this. Poor lighting can cause eye strain. Conversely, proper illumination can improve productivity.
See the mechanism. Bad light leads to a bad result, which is eye strain. Flip the input to good light, and you get a good result, which is productivity. That is a converse relationship. It's a seesaw.
So I couldn't say, I like pizza. Conversely, my brother likes pasta.
No, that makes zero sense. That's just a difference in preference. That's where you'd use in contrast or whereas. Right. Conversely implies a direct, logical, often causal relationship between the two sides. It's very common in science or economics. If supply goes up, price goes down. Conversely, if supply goes down, price goes up.
That's a huge aha moment for me. I think a lot of people use conversely just to sound smart, but they're using it wrong. They just mean on the other hand.
And they end up confusing their listeners in the process. If you use conversely without that reverse logic, the listener is subconsciously looking for a pattern that isn't there. It creates confusion.
Speaking of confusing listeners, let's talk about on the contrary.
Ah, the most misused phrase in English. It's possible. It's definitely in the top 3.
I hear this all the time as a polite transition. Someone says, I think the meeting went well, and someone else replies, on the contrary, I agree.
Groans. No, that makes my skin crawl. On the contrary is aggressive. It is a sword. You use it to kill a misconception. It is used to intensify a denial.
So it implies that the statement that came right before it was factually wrong.
100% false. You are saying what you think is true is actually the opposite of the truth. It is a correction tool, a refutation tool.
The source example is about the desert. Many people think the desert is lifeless.
That's the myth. That is the statement being attacked. Now comes the sword. On the contrary, it is home to a vast array of specialized species.
So if there isn't a no or a myth to bust, you can't use it.
Correct. You can't use it to just offer a different opinion. If you say, I like blue, and I say, on the contrary, I like red, I sound insane. I'm implying that your liking of blue is a factual error that needs correcting.
It's a very dramatic way to talk about colors. You are wrong. Red is the truth.
Exactly. Save on the contrary for when you really need to correct someone's facts or correct a negative assumption someone has about you. You think I'm angry. On the contrary, I'm delighted.
Okay, let's look at the against all odds connectors, nevertheless and nonetheless. These feel very cinematic to me. They feel like the turning point in a movie.
They are. They signal resilience. They introduce a fact that exists despite the previous context. They are what we call concessive connectors. You concede a point, but then you overcome it.
The team was exhausted. Nevertheless, they managed to win the championship.
Think about the logic there. Exhaustion should lead to defeat. That's the normal chain of events. Nevertheless, cuts that chain. It says, we acknowledge the difficulty, we concede that point, but the outcome defied it.
Is there any real difference between nevertheless and nonetheless,
Yeah.
or can we just use them as we please?
Functionally, very, very little. Nonetheless is perhaps a tiny bit more common in spoken British English, maybe slightly more formal, but honestly, you can use them interchangeably in 99% of situations. They both serve that purpose of saying, yes, X is a negative factor, but we did Y anyway.
Okay, good to know. And finally for this group, alternatively.
The choice maker. This isn't about conflict, it's about options. We could take the train to London. Alternatively, we could rent a car and drive.
This is a great de-escalation word in meetings, isn't it? If you don't like an idea, instead of just saying, no, that's a bad idea, you can say, alternatively.
It keeps the flow moving, it doesn't block the path, it builds a new road, it's very solution-oriented, it suggests you are flexible and thinking about different possibilities, not just shutting things down.
So we've added layers and we've twisted the plot. Now we need to explain why. We're moving to the engine room. Group 3. Cause, effect, and logic.
This is where you sound like an authority. This is the language of consequences. This is where you stop just describing things and start explaining how the world actually works.
And we all know so and because.
Oh.
It rained, so I got wet, but the source material offers in view of. This sounds like something a lawyer writes in a very serious letter.
It's because of wearing a tuxedo. It's very formal. In view of the recent budget cuts, the conference has been canceled.
It sounds distancing. It removes the person from the decision.
That's the point. It makes the speaker sound objective and institutional. If I say, because we lost money, I'm canceling the party, it sounds personal. It sounds like I'm doing it. If I say, in view of the financial constraints, the event has been canceled, it sounds like an unavoidable, logical decision based on evidence.
It removes the emotion. It puts the focus on the situation, not the person making the call.
Precisely. It frames the decision as an inevitable result of the facts. It's very useful for delivering bad news in a professional setting.
And then we have consequently.
This one is about direct, linear consequence. The pilot fell ill. Consequently, the flight was delayed.
It feels tighter than so, more immediate.
So is loose. So can be used for almost anything. Consequently implies a direct mechanism, a triggered B. It emphasizes the result of a specific preceding event.
And therefore, this is the Sherlock Holmes word. This is the one I use when I want to sound really, really sure of myself.
Therefore is for deduction. It's almost mathematical. It implies logic. X is true, Y is true, therefore Z must be true.
The suspect's fingerprints were on the gun. Therefore, he is the prime person of interest.
It's the only logical conclusion. You use therefore when you want to show that your conclusion is rock solid based on the evidence presented. You aren't guessing. You have done the math.
What about as a result? Is that just another synonym for consequently? They feel very similar.
They are very close. But I'd say as a result emphasizes the process or the chain of events a bit more. It feels a bit more narrative. The heavy rains lasted for 3 days. As a result, the river overflowed its banks. It paints a picture of the physical cause and effect. It feels a bit more descriptive of an occurrence, whereas consequently can feel more about a logical state.
I see. And then, hence, I feel like I only see this in old books, or when someone is trying to be very dramatic.
Or legal rulings. Hence is the gavel bang. It explains the origin or the definitive reason for something. She was born in midsummer, hence her name, Summer.
It links the source directly to the identity. It feels very final.
It does. It's extremely formal. You wouldn't say, I'm hungry, hence I'm eating. That's too grand. You sound like a king addressing his court. But for a formal conclusion, it's powerful. The evidence was tampered with, hence the dismissal of the case. That works. It implies finality.
Okay, so we got the logic. Now, group 4, reference and context. This is about zooming in.
This is the antidote to rambling. I'm sure we've all read an email where someone goes on, and by the end, you don't know what they're actually referring to anymore. These phrases define the scope. They bring focus.
The first one is, in this regard. This one can be tricky. What does regard actually mean here? It's a bit of an abstract word.
Regard here means point or detail or aspect. When you say in this regard, you are saying concerning the specific point I just mentioned.
So it's a way of referring back to the immediate sentence before it.
Yes, exactly. Look at the example from the notes. The new law aims to reduce pollution. In this regard, several factories have already been fined for non-compliance.
So this regard refers specifically to reducing pollution or the new law.
Exactly. It connects the action, fining factories, to the specific context. The pollution law, it's like a laser pointer. It says, look right here. I'm talking about this specific connection. It prevents confusion.
Then we have in regard to, or with regard to. These seem like the standard openers for difficult or very formal emails.
They are the bread and butter of professional correspondence. They introduce a new topic or specify exactly what the subject of the email is. In regard to your application from last week.
It's a signal flare.
Yeah.
Hey, look here. This is what we were about to discuss.
And it's polite. In regard to your application, we are pleased to inform you that you have been shortlisted. It sets a professional, focused tone immediately.
Is regarding just the lazy version of in regard to?
I wouldn't say lazy, I'd say efficient. Modern business moves fast. Regarding your email is perfectly fine and very common. It's cleaner than with reference to the email you sent me this morning. Both are correct, but regarding is often preferred in modern, faster communication. It just cuts the fluff.
Now, with respect to, this sounds very technical, very precise.
It is. It's a comparator, but a very specific one. You see this in legal or technical documents where precision is absolutely key. The two car models are very similar with respect to fuel efficiency and safety features.
So you are isolating specific variables. You aren't saying the cars are similar in general. You're saying they're similar only within these specific boxes.
Correct. It limits the scope of the comparison. It prevents someone from saying, but the red car is faster and has a better stereo, because you've already said we are only talking with respect to fuel efficiency and safety. It keeps the argument focused.
And finally, in terms of, I feel like people overuse this one a bit, but it's so incredibly useful.
It is useful because it allows you to shift the perspective. It lets you narrow down a very broad topic to one specific angle.
The project was a success in terms of quality, but it was a failure in terms of budget.
That is the perfect example. Was the project a success? Well, yes and no. It's complicated. In terms of allows you to split that answer. It allows for nuance. You can look at the same object through different lenses. Life is complex. And in terms of, gives you the vocabulary to describe that complexity accurately.
So the house is built. We have the foundation with addition, the walls with contrast, the plumbing and wiring with cause and effect, and the windows with reference and focus. But a house needs furniture. It needs action. It needs life.
And that is where we enter the nightmare zone. Group 5. Essential phrasal verbs.
You call these nightmares in the notes. Why, is that fair? Or are you being a bit dramatic?
I think it is fair for the learner, I really do. Because phrasal verbs defy logic. In many other languages, especially Latin-based ones, you usually have a specific verb for every action. To enter, to exit, to descend. In English, we take a basic tiny verb like go or put or take, and we glue a preposition to it, and suddenly the meaning changes completely, and often in a way you could never guess.
It's the code of English. If you don't know the code for that specific combination, you can't guess the meaning.
Right. You can't translate them word for word. If you translate put and off, you get placing something away from yourself. But put off means to procrastinate. There is no logical link there for the learner. They just have to memorize the entire unit.
That is the key, isn't it? Don't translate the individual words. Treat the whole phrase as a single, unique verb. So let's crack the code on a few of these. First up, go along with.
Go along with. This implies cooperation or agreement. But notice the vibe, the feeling of it. Although she had some doubts, she decided to go along with the majority's decision.
It implies a bit of passivity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You aren't leading the charge. You are sort of flowing with the current.
Exactly. It implies you might have doubts or you might not be 100% enthusiastic, but you're doing it to keep the peace or because it's the easiest path. You wouldn't say, I went along with my own passion. You go along with a group or a plan you didn't create.
Right. Okay. Next is go up. Simple enough.
Simple, but essential. It means to increase. But notice the grammar here. It is intransitive.
Okay, don't get too technical on us. What does that mean for the listener who just wants to speak better?
It means it doesn't need a direct object. You don't go up the price itself goes up.
Ah, okay. So, because of the crisis, electricity bills are expected to go up. The bills are doing the action themselves.
Exactly. You can't say the government went up the tax. You would have to say the government raised the tax. Go up is something the subject does itself.
Got it. Now, back up. This one is a triple threat. The source material points out 3 distinct meanings.
Yes, and context is everything here. Meaning number 1, support or evidence. This is crucial for arguments. You need some hard evidence to back up your claims.
Meaning number 2, reverse, like a car. Could you back up the truck a little?
And meaning 3, data. Don't forget to back up your important files.
But for our listeners focusing on fluency and argumentation, that first meeting is the gold mine. If you are in a meeting and someone makes a wild claim, the most powerful question you can ask is, can you back that up?
Exactly. It's a power move. It challenges the foundation of their argument without being overly aggressive.
Look into, this is the detective verb.
To investigate. The police are looking into the disappearance of the paintings. It sounds more active and procedural than just checking.
Yeah, I'll check. It sounds like a 2-second glance at a document. I'll look into it. Sounds like work. It sounds like you're taking it seriously.
Right. It implies a process of examination. If your boss asks you about a problem, saying, "I'll look into it," buys you time and suggests you are giving it the attention it deserves.
Carry out. This sounds like you're lifting something heavy, but it's not literal at all.
No, it means to perform or complete a task, usually something formal or structured. Scientists carry out experiments, soldiers carry out orders, a company carries out a strategy.
You wouldn't carry out a sandwich.
No, unless you are literally taking it out of a room. But in a professional sense, you carry out a plan, a task, an order. It implies execution.
Bring about. This is a big picture verb. It feels important.
It means to cause something to happen. But usually it's used for significant, large-scale change. The new CEO hopes to bring about significant changes in the company culture. You don't bring about a spilled coffee. You bring about a revolution or a policy shift.
It has a sense of gravity to it. Okay, put off. We are all guilty of this one.
Procrastination. To postpone or delay. The classic example is never put off until tomorrow what you can do today.
I feel attacked by that example every time I hear it.
It's timeless advice for a reason. But notice, put off is separable. You can put the meeting off or put off the meeting. Both are correct.
Make up for, this is the apology verb or the relationship repair verb.
To compensate.
Yeah.
To balance the scales. He bought her flowers to make up for being late. You did something bad, being late, so you do something good, flowers, to restore the balance. It's about debt and repayment in relationships and social situations.
Take after. This is strictly about family, right? You wouldn't say you take after your boss.
Usually, yes. It means to resemble a family member in appearance or character. Jamie takes after his father. They have the same sense of humor and love for sports. He's not stealing from his dad. He's echoing him.
And finally, break down. Another double meaning here.
Yes. The most common one for learners is the machine failure. My car broke down on the highway. But in a business or analysis context, it means to separate into parts for examination.
The accountant will break down the expenses so we can see where the money is going.
This is a crucial one. If you say, "Can you break this down for me?" you are asking for a detailed explanation, a step-by-step analysis. You are not asking for the thing to be physically destroyed.
Unless you were talking to a demolition crew.
True. Context is king always.
So we have walked through the entire stack. We've looked at the connectors that build, that contrast, that explain, and that focus. And we've looked at the phrasal verbs that add action and nuance.
And if you look at them all together, you see the toolkit of a truly fluent speaker. When you combine these, you stop sounding like a student translating in their head. You stop painting with only 3 colors.
Right. Instead of saying something like, I want to buy this car. It is expensive. Also, it is safe. But I don't have money, so I will not buy it.
Which is grammatically correct, but it's very choppy. It sounds like a telegram.
I could say. In terms of safety, this car is excellent. Moreover, it is incredibly stylish. However, in view of the high price and my current budget, I simply cannot justify the purchase. Consequently, I will have to look into some cheaper alternatives.
That is the difference. That is the architecture of fluency. You took the same basic ideas, but you wove them into a sophisticated narrative. You controlled the listener's journey. You told them where to look, what to value, and how to understand your final decision.
And that's the so what here, isn't it? Using these words correctly doesn't just help you pass the YDT or get a high score on a language test. It commands respect. It changes how people perceive your intelligence and your competence in professional environments.
Absolutely. It signals that you are a thinker, not just a speaker. It signals that you understand nuance and can construct a complex argument.
So here is the challenge for our listeners today. We don't want you to go away and try to memorize all 30 of these tonight. That's impossible and it's not effective.
No, please don't. Choose one from each group, just one. Pick furthermore to try instead of also. Pick conversely to try instead of but. Pick look into to use instead of check.
And try to use them in your next conversation or your next email. Just see how it feels. See how the other person reacts when you use a more precise tool.
And ask yourself this, how often do you default to and, but, and so? Take a look at the last 5 emails you wrote. If you can replace just one of those with a moreover or a nevertheless, you are already climbing off that plateau. You are adding a new, more vibrant color to your painting.
I love that. Start with one brick. Eventually, you'll build the whole house.
Exactly. That's the way.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of language. We're going to be looking into more fascinating topics next time, so make sure you don't put off listening.
Very well done.
See you next time.